Okay, looks like we're recording again. So we're gonna give YouTube another shot at greatness. Good morning, y'all. Just another segment of starting from the bottom. We had started this recordings, and we had started talking about these things almost 2 years ago now, when the Lord took everything that was materialistic from me, and I say took it from me, but at the same time it's a double-edged sword, and so there's two it's subject to interpretation, and I think that's going to be the topic of the next couple of months here, depending on what the Lord wills, as far as what He injects in my brain, or what sprouts in my brain as I continue reading the Word and interpreting what's happening around us, and interpreting the sacred scriptures that are in the Bible. So it's subject to interpretation, and everything is subject to interpretation. Just a couple of days ago, I did a thing on Facebook. I'm on my way to my divine appointment. I only have about maybe 10-15 minutes here, so I'm going to try to be quick. It's just going to be a quick injection, like heroin. It's be like boom. Hopefully it comes in and does what it's supposed to do. So quickly, subject to interpretation. A couple of weeks ago, or just actually a few days ago, I posted something where I was really explicit. I was saying a lot of words that a lot of people get offended by, but there was a point to that conversation. And what happens a lot of the times is that, especially when we're seeing the things that are out there, we get to a point where we say, well, that's not good, and then we walk away from it, or we hide from it. Right now we have this coronavirus coming through, and yes, it's a deadly virus. Yes, it'll absolutely kill you. Yes, it'll take you out. But that's subject to interpretation, because back in January, December, there were people that were going to the hospital. These are confirmed. This is a confirmed case. This is a true story. People that were going to the hospital. It's just that it's not out yet, because people are more focused on what the media is telling you versus what's really happening. And what's really happening is what the media is telling you, but there's more to it than what the media is telling you. And there's always half truths, and that's where they say the devil's in the details. And it's very important that we understand that the devil's in the details. And so it's important to listen, even though there's something that's being said that's offensive, or something that's being said that might not align with your belief system. It's listening to what's being said. If you reject it totally, you're going to miss the teaching. Because if I reject totally what somebody is telling me, and they're a Buddhist, and I'm saying, no, you're a Buddhist, I'm rejecting totally the wisdom that person might have. It's not to say that person doesn't have any wisdom. If I reject the person totally, then I'm not getting the nuggets of information that person may have. And this is where we're at right now. The truth is that Rome wasn't built in a day. And the truth is that Rome is still, to this day, besides Egypt, the only country that has stood the test of time for the time that it's been around. This is why we keep track of it. This is why we say it's been 200 and something years for the U.S. Because historically, Rome, after I believe 500 years, ended up destroying itself. And so here we are. Now, is it time now? People out there are preaching that it's the end times now, but people were preaching end times in the 40s and the 60s and the 50s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and 2000, 2010, 2005, 2015, 2000 Y2K. I mean, people have been preaching the end of time for so long. Now, but what does that mean? Now, it's subject to interpretation. the Lord tells us in the Bible, and if we study and we're truly reading those things and we're looking into those things and we're seeking life, not death, if we're seeking life, we would see that the Bible has always told us to stay prepared, because the time and the hour is unknown to everybody except the Father. So that means we're supposed to always be ready. Not right now just because of the COVID. That's when the Lord's like, gets so frustrated, he says, you brood of vipers. It was John. It's the Lord. Come on. I'm not going to sit here and try to explain all points, but it's like the parables. Sometimes we speak and it's supposed to be a parable. Did the Lord know that he was speaking parables? Did the disciples understand? And these are the disciples. And so then this is the disciples that we take to 100% face value in the Bible. And they were wrong a lot of the time. Again, subject to interpretation. Some jerk off out there is going to say, oh, I can't believe you're telling me what's in the Bible is wrong. Again, subject to interpretation. That's what's in your heart. I'm not saying that. It may sound that way, but that's not what I'm saying. And again, it's all subject to interpretation. New King James Bible, King James Version, a New Living Translation. There's all these different translations for a reason. And yet we're so focused on the broadness of this whole thing that we very, very seldomly put laser focus on what's right in front of us. If we cut the bullshit, I'm gonna give you something that just came to me right now, and it's the true story. I was in a temple, and I'm almost at my appointment. I was in a temple just 18 months ago. It's probably been longer now, but no, it's been about 18 months. I was at this place, and I was talking to the congregation at a Bible study. And in this Bible study, the pastor gets up and basically rebukes me. And I'm not understanding what his problem is. Because again, everything is subject to interpretation. Now, I could have easily gotten up myself, because, you know, these buildings that are called churches, because again, now we're starting to see the flip side of what I've been saying for a long time. And people in the past were basically crucifying me for it. I've been saying that the church is right here. Church is in here. I've been saying that forever. And yet when I go to a lot of these places, they're like, well, you're condemning the congregation. Again, that's not what I'm saying. And so I get to this place and we're having a Bible study, and this sister is up on the pulpit talking to the rest of the congregation and saying that she happens to be the sister of the pastor, like truly the sister of the pastor, right? But I'm just saying, it's all subject to interpretation. She's telling everybody, she's trying to make a point. She's trying to pat herself on the back, which we do, and we make that mistake, and it's okay. We make mistakes, and this is a mistake that she was making. The problem is that when we make mistakes, very seldomly do people ever say, okay, you know what? Let me see why I'm being told this. Let me reflect on what's being said. Let me talk to the Lord about it, and then I'll come back to you. No, it's right there. Boom, boom, boom. Let's fight. Let's start an argument. And that's not what the Bible tells us to do. That's not what the Bible, let me rephrase that. Because the Bible doesn't tell us to do anything. It's brought to us. See, it's like this bread. It's like this piece of bread. Here's the piece of bread. Take it if you want. That's what the Lord says. Take it if you want. It's there for you. Take this piece of bread. It's yours. And if you eat it, it will edify you. It'll do what it's supposed to do. It's going to give you what you need. Not open your mouth, take it. That's not how it works. And a lot of people will do that. Mistakenly do that. Pastors all over the world make that mistake all the time. But it's okay. Why is it okay? Because they're still growing too. The congregation is still growing too. We're always going to make mistakes. And so when we reject somebody totally, then we're saying that that person is totally wrong. Yet, do we really know if that person is totally wrong? And then it goes back to the Lord. All the high priests and everybody that was in leadership at that time said, no, you're wrong. Blasphemy. I mean, they even said that this guy was the devil. And they were totally wrong. And so again, it's reflecting, and everything is subject to interpretation. And so I'm talking to this sister because there's a lot of people around us. And she has no idea the waters that she's treading in. And she's telling people this story that her family comes over to visit. Now, they came from a very, very long way to come and visit her, to see her. Man, I tell you what, if I can I'll pay somebody to come and visit me. You know, it's like I've been begging anybody, just somebody come and see me, you know? Shoot. These people came to visit because they wanted to see her, because they hadn't seen her. They had heard that she was ill. And they came to see her. And it happened to be a Sunday when they arrived. And so she's like, well, I'm going to go to church. This is what she's saying. I'm going to go to church. You guys come with me. Now imagine you being the person that's coming to, I imagine myself being that person. I'm coming from very long ways. You know, I might be tired, you know, jet lag if I'm in a plane. I mean, I've traveled and I know how tiring it is to get to a location and not want to go anywhere after I just came from somewhere, you know. And then I'm being dragged out of from my will. I'm being dragged to go somewhere I don't want to go. It's not because maybe I don't want to go today because I don't want to go to church. I might just not want to go today or right now. And so she's trying to drive a point, but so am I. And so I'm listening, and she's saying to the congregation that she's like, well, I have to be in church, and church is where everybody's supposed to go. And this is why I'm here. And I'm here today telling you that I'm here because church is more important than anything. And I'm sitting here looking straight at her. She has no idea what she's saying. She has no idea what she's talking about. Because she's trying to be politically correct. She's trying to kiss the pastor's ass. She's trying to get everybody else to look at her. And I'm sitting here thinking, what a selfish person she really is. It's no wonder that she's alone. It's no wonder that she's always talking about how nobody wants to deal with her or be around her. It has nothing to do with church. It has nothing to do with what she believes as far as what she believes in the Lord. It has everything to do with how she applies what she's read. And she's missing a lot. But applause. Pastor. Oh, yes, sister. I'm sitting here looking at these other 20 individuals, and they're all kind of like, you can see them thinking. This is why it's so important to be careful what you feed people. You know, I owned a restaurant, and I was really, really anal about the ingredients that went into the foods that I created. I was anal about washing my hands, not because of a virus, but I was always sanitizing because of the viruses that are always out there. It's not just one virus. We're continuously and constantly being attacked by viruses day in and day out. There are cancerous viruses everywhere. Cancerous cells everywhere. There is H1N1s. There's all these things everywhere on a daily basis. And I'm really, really careful, even in the most careful of my carefulness, if that's even a word. I was laser focused on making sure that when I provided the food that I provided, it was the best quality food that I could possibly provide. Now, does that mean that it was perfect every single time? I did my best, 100% every single day. Every day was a new day. I couldn't think about yesterday. I had to think about today. I had to think about the food that was in front of me. Are these tomatoes okay? How long have they been out? 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? Oh man, 4 hours is getting old. 6 hours, 7 hours for a vegetable. 7 hours, 8 hours? Try to put a banana out for that long. And it goes back to this story. So I speak up. I said, sister, I said, but your family came to visit you. Oh yeah, but if they really loved me and they were my family, they would come to church. And I'm thinking, didn't they travel over 200 miles in one of the poorest third world countries to come and visit you? They had to have probably planned that for months, or not planned it at all, because they heard that her sister was ill. And all they wanted to know was how she was doing. All they wanted to do was maybe break some bread with her. Now, true, she goes to church. She's a leader at the church. She's the Bible study teacher or whatnot. I'm going to tell you right now, this is why it's so difficult to do the things that we do. Because when you're the only one standing on that pulpit, and you choose to be the only one standing on that pulpit, then you go back to what Moses would do. And Moses would try to do more than he needed to. Afraid that if he delegated authority, that somebody would preach better than him, maybe. And take his spot, maybe. And it goes back to the fear factor. What are you afraid of? What are all you pastors out there afraid of? What's really in your heart, you leaders? What's really in your heart? I'm not worried about it. I've never been worried about it. I know who's in me. It took me some time to figure it out. Yeah, just like everybody else. I've been searching and searching and searching. I've talked to some really good pastors. And just like people will come to me and talk to me and ask me about things, I'm going to make a mistake or two or three. But I don't point anybody to me. I point everybody to the Lord. It's like, look, this is my interpretation of what I've read and what I've studied and what I've seen in my life. Is it edifying? Is it beneficial? Might not be to you. But that's a poor man's way of thinking. If I stand outside, like I did yesterday, and I spoke to a gentleman, and I looked at his teeth, and I look at the way he's dressed, and just by the outside appearance, I'm thinking I'm dealing with the basehead. But no, I've been around long enough now. Starts talking to me. Turns out he's a vet. Turns out he served our country. Turns out that he did some hardcore work, and it was in the engineering area. Man's super intelligent. But he made some decisions and doesn't have the funds that he's supposed to have, and didn't plan his life correctly. And so he's barely making it. So he probably doesn't take care of his hygiene like he's supposed to. Nothing to do with any drugs. And this man was super intelligent, as we all are, in the good and in the bad. And he's given me nuggets of gold, just pouring out of him. Had I rejected it, had I just walked away, had I, because I mean, the guy was talking, I mean, he talked my ear off, but he needed someone to talk to, a vet that needed someone to listen to him. I was listening to him. I was listening to his stories. I was engaged. And so, going back to the church, it's not saying that we shouldn't congregate, but we've been the church the whole time. And so then before it was, no, you gotta come. You have to. No, I don't. You have to take off your hat. You have to dress this way. You have to. No, I don't. It's not what the Bible tells me. Oh, we're cleaning up fish. Oh, so you're telling me that I'm fishy? Telling me that I'm dirty? Shame, 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 shame. Yet I walk into a place and I've never judged anybody. I've never said, look how fat you are. But yet if I do, all of a sudden the tables turn. I start to speak the truth out about what I see in you, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I can't believe this man talking to me like this. I can't believe this man. I can't believe this, bro. Hate comes out of the same place that love does. Yeah, take it. Boom. Go ahead. It's no big deal. It's part of this whole thing. The Lord designed it this way. It's perfect. It's perfect. And so, subject to interpretation. When I say I'm the church, it's exactly who I am. Now, I have a responsibility as the church to speak on those things that I've learned, those things that I've gone through and I've survived. Because I'm a survivor. I'm still here. There's so many reasons why I shouldn't be. So many. And I'm still here to talk to you, whoever it is. Now, is it better to be congregating? Absolutely. There's nothing like having people in front of you getting, feeding off of the same spirit, and some people say energy, spirit. It's interpreting however you want it. Feeding off of the same thing and praising the Lord together. I mean, when you sit there in a stadium of 60,000 people, 70,000 people, 80,000 people, it's totally different than watching it on TV. Totally different. I can watch the Super Bowl on TV, and I can watch the Raiders versus the Chargers at the stadium, the two sorriest teams in the NFL. And I can watch them well, actually Detroit would probably be up there too, but I'm talking about on our side because we're from the West, you know. And so I can sit there at the stadium watching a Chargers and Raiders game with 5,000 people, and it's still better than watching the Super Bowl on TV with the greatest comeback ever. It's still better to be there. It's not saying not to be there. Saying that there's certain things that need to be broken off, these strongholds that we've created. We've created them. Man, the doctrine of man. I'm Pentecostal. I'm Baptist. I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you're pretty freaking stupid. We all are. Sometimes. I don't relate. The Lord said, man. But then again, it's not condemning. It's the doctrine of man. Continue following in that path. The Bible has something totally different than what that is, if you continue to read it. Oh, brother, I'm going to challenge you. You Philistines. Try it. Challenge. You ain't challenging me. I'm nobody. I was dead long ago. But what's in here, you'll see it. It's about that time. The moral of that story is pay attention to the details, because everything is subject to interpretation. Everything. And that's the point, because it weeds out those that are true and those that are not. And so we fishing for soldiers, because it's time. It's time that we give this perspective of life to people. A lot of people are not going to like it. I didn't like half of the stuff that you guys had to say in the first place. So I dealt with it. I didn't go into your church turning over tables like I could have. I didn't come in there and start throwing things, tomatoes at people, doing all kinds of craziness. I could have. Who was to stop me? Nobody. Security? I got a bat for security. Oh, I got what? People putting out guns? Yeah, we got guns. We got guns. We Aztecs. We Mayans. We got machetes. Is there some? Oh, I didn't mean to show that. There was some unexpected blood on that. You know, not human. Not human. Don't you scary asses start sending the sheriffs at me. I got friends. It's not human, because the Lord says that we shouldn't do that. That's a different story. So anyways, but there's a point to that too. The whole thing is that, again, it's not force feeding, baby. Sometimes you got to force feed some people. Sometimes you got to force feed some people, those people that want to die. But you know, I say it like this. If they want to die, let them. Why? If you're so adamant about killing yourself, then sayonara. You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't got time for all that. But what I do got time for is to speak life. Well, what I want to give time for, because that's another wrong statement. I got time for it. We all got the same amount of time. I just ain't giving no time to that. Give it time to where where people really want it. Because even the roaches of the planet don't want to die. You don't believe me? Try to step on one. if being a roach and nobody wants it around, even being the roach, if you try to step on that bad boy, it's running. And it knows what life is, because if it didn't know what life is, it would just stay there and die. So, with that being said, that's enough for today. You got a whole 30 minutes out of that one. And more coming soon. Coming from the bottom, we're Evangels MC. Evangels MC. Coming, baby. We coming for you. We coming for you. Better be ready.